Hi everybody, this is Darlene from darlenestamps.stampinup.net. I'm really glad that you found me today. We're going to talk about this word, the word case, and I want to share with you a little bit about what the word means and a journey that I had recently concerning the word case. If you are a stamper, perhaps even a crafter, card maker, you might hear or see this word and you might say, what does that mean? Or you may hear somebody saying, I'm casing something. Case means copy and share everything. And people who post their projects out on YouTube, on Pinterest, on all of these different sites are very kindly sharing their ideas about a particular stamp set or a product, and they're saying to you, here's my ideas, please feel free to use them and tweak them, change them how you want to make your project. And that's what I wanted to do with a particular product from Stampin' Up. Let me show you what I mean. One of the products in our new catalog are these iridescent snowflakes. You can see they're very pearlescent. They're really pretty. They're all laser cut. You just pull them out of the packaging here. You get 24 in a pack and they're just $6. So that was a great price, and you could make a lot of cards with them, and so this is what I wanted to use. The other thing that I wanted to use was our shimmer paper. Our shimmer paper is 8.5 by 11 cardstock. It's a little bit heavier than our basic white cardstock. And as you can see here, if I can get it to show, it is shimmery. It's not working real good in the camera, but it is shimmery, glittery, if you will, on both sides. So I wanted to combine those two things in a project, in a card. So I wasn't the greatest at coming up with ideas myself, and so I thought I'm going to go out on Pinterest and see what's out there. When you go to Pinterest, for example, up in the search bar, you can put in the stamp set that you're looking for or the designer series paper. In this case, I put in the name of the snowflake, and up came this card. I was really smitten with this card. It used the snowflake. I'm a blue, green, purple kind of a person, if you know what I mean. So this background paper was just beautiful. I was just taken with the whole thing. This was posted by a demonstrator whose name is Sue Moore, and I just loved what she did. Now also on this site of hers on Pinterest, she actually shared the sketch that she used. Here's the sketch. What she used to help her design her card. Now, this is from Freshly Made Sketches, and there are a lot of sites out there. If you put in, card blueprints or card sketches, card layouts, you will have a plethora of places to look for just things to jog your creativity, kind of layouts to use for your project. So between those two things, I was ready to go. The only thing that I needed now was really the blue paper, right? She used blue. So I went into our current July-December mini catalog, and I wanted to look for blue tone paper. This year, Stampin' Up! Decided to stick with traditional colors. There's a lot of reds and greens in that catalog, but there wasn't any blues, and so I was a little disappointed. But then I thought, you know what? Let's just make my own background paper. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, how I made my own background paper. And actually, I did two different techniques that I want to show you. Let me get a little paper here to protect my mat. The first technique, and again, I'm using my shimmer paper, okay? The first technique I'm going to do is called ink blending. Now, for each of my pads up here, actually off camera, I have one of our blending brushes. These come in a pack of 3. They're a really tight-knit head and a nice long handle. And what you do with these is you actually use them in your ink pads to blend. So what I did here, I used 4 of our blues. This is Balmy Blue. This is Pacific Point. This is Night of Navy, and then Starry Sky, one of our new in colors. It's blue, but it's a very purpley blue. Those were the 4 colors I wanted to blend together. Now, the technique for using a blending brush is very, very simple. You're going to pick up your ink from your ink pad, and the way I do that is I swirl my brush You can see I picked up some ink. Now, if I went directly to my paper, I would probably wind up with a blob of dark ink, and I don't want that. So I always tap, tap before I go to my focal point. So I'm going to tap, tap, okay? And now I'm going to start swirling off my piece and then onto my piece. Now, Balmy Blue is extremely light in its tone, and so I need to do this several times. Actually, I need to re-ink several times, tapping and coming on there. I didn't tap too much, but this particular technique is pretty forgiving, so I'm not like too concerned about that. So this is going to be kind of a base layer of light. Okay, next I'm going to Pacific Point. Now you can see Pacific Point is very saturated, very, very bright blue, and my ink pad is somewhat juicy. So I'm going to have to be a little careful with this. I'm going to, again, swirl it, tap, tap, and now I'm going to do some Pacific Point in just some areas, not over everything. I kind of want to create some segments, if you will, blobs, if you will, whatever you want to call them. So I'm not covering everything, okay? There's my Pacific Point. Now I'm going to go to my Night of Navy. Night of Navy, quite dark. You can see the difference there. And now I'm going to come in with that. Can you see the technique here? There's really not a right or a wrong. It's really about, you kind of play. I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to play today, but you can see my different parts of my sky. Okay, it's kind of a Matisse looking sky, if you will. Okay, now I'm going to go to my Starry Sky. Now this is quite dark. It's a purpley blue, so I want to be a little gentle with my application. I don't want to overpower with purple, but can you see that purple come through there? Do you see that? So you can see why I want to be a little careful with that, because I don't want to cover everything with the purple. Then I'm going to take a look, and I think I'm going to go back with a little of the navy. So this is the process. I'm not going to spend a lot of time today, but you can see, you kind of look at things, go back and say, you know, I'd like a little dark, I'd like to add a little darker, a little more of purple, whatever. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but you get the idea, okay? And I don't know if you can see the shimmer, but the shimmer is shining right through, there you go. It's shining right through that ink. Okay, so that's the first technique. Now the second technique to make a background, again, I'm using my shimmer paper. We're going to be using water this time, so you might want to go to the watercolor paper because that will really hold up to water the best. But the shimmer paper, because it is a little heavier, does pretty good with the water. We're not going to be saturating it with water, but we are going to be using water with it. Some other tools for this is going to be my big glass block, block F. It's the largest block that we have. I'm going to be using our mister. These come in a pack of 2. You fill them with water or alcohol if you're doing some spray alcohol painting. The thing that I really love about these is that the mister part is very fine. Sometimes when you get a mister bottle, it kind of blurts out things. You know, you have a blob of water instead of mist of water. This is a very fine mist, so it's really good for watercolor techniques. And then I'm also going to use one of our water painters. Our water painters come in a set of 3. There is a wide tip, there is a broad brush, and then a mini, I guess you'd say a narrow brush. They have barrels that you fill with water, and so you don't need a water pan or a cup or anything. Everything is self-contained in your barrel, and then to get water to come out, you simply squeeze the barrel. I'm going to use the middle tip there, a little broader tip. Okay, why do I have my glass block? Stampin' Up! Demonstrators will show you and tell you that one way to use either a water brush or a blending brush with your ink pad is to, when the pad is closed, you squeeze it really hard, and what that does is it puts ink into the lid. You see all the ink I have in there? And then you could use your water brush. You can go into your lid with your water and do your technique. The thing about that process is you need to remember to wipe that lid out when you're done. If you leave water in the lid, I really feel it can contaminate your ink pad, it can dilute it, and I don't think that's the best thing for an ink pad. So it's not wrong, it's just something that I would really think about. With the technique I'm going to do today, again, I'm using 4 blues, okay? And if I want to mix them together, I can't mix them in the lid. So what I do is I take and I use my block as a palette, and I'm taking and putting each blue on a corner. Can you see them? So there are my 4 blues. I won't do much of the navy here. There we go. So what this allows me to do, a couple of things. I can pull out, like this is very dark, it's very saturated, and I might not want to have that dark of an ink. So I can, with my brush, I can pull this out into the middle and kind of water it down. The other thing that I can do is I can mix. Maybe I want some of the navy to mix with the balmy blue and to make it a mixture of a blue. You can't mix in the lid of an ink pad. So I just find the block really, really helpful for this technique. Okay, first thing I'm going to do off camera is give my paper a spritz, not soaking it, not soaking it. Okay, and now I'm going to start. I'm squeezing water. You can see it's going to come out. There we go. And I'm just going to do, again, we're doing sections. Don't overthink this technique. Don't fret about it. Just kind of flow with it, if you will. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my, let's go to Pacific Point. Now you can see how, let me pull this up here. Can you see how deep that is? It's a really bright color. So I want to be a little sparing with this. And again, for my project, I'm going to be cutting mostly out of the middle, so you don't have to worry about the edges so much. Okay, let me go to my, and I might spray it a little bit, re-moisten it here. Here is my navy. There is no right or wrong with this technique. No right or wrong. It's just, and sometimes you can't control, which some people are like, oh, I don't like when I can't control it. But sometimes it's fun to see the surprise. And then at the end, we're going to put in a little bit of that purplish starry sky. It doesn't look like a lot right now. Sometimes you may say, I don't know about this technique. Not going to overthink it or overdo it, but there's my watercolor. Okay. Now what I would have to do is I would have to let that dry, and I would also probably put it under the block to really flatten it out. But when it's done, it would be something like this. It really reminds me of a tie-dye look, if you will. Remember the old tie-dye shirts? So that's my finished piece. So now I have 2 technique pieces. I have my ink blending and I have my watercolor. You may prefer one over the other. You'll have to try them and see. Okay, now let's get to the card. Now if we go back to Sue's card, we have the 2 rectangles, and then instead of another piece of paper, she actually put words. And she also has a matte piece. Let me show you what I did. Here is my base. Let me turn this over. Here's my base. And then I decided to use my stitched rectangle dies. Here are our dies. There's 13 of them. And so what I did with the largest one, I did that for my focal base. And then this is for my larger rectangle, and this one's for my smaller rectangle. And then I went in my stash. This is an old stamp, but it fit really good. And there's my layout, just like on Pinterest. Okay, and when I did all of that, this is what I got. Here is my focal piece. Now, one thing I want to show you on here, I don't know if you can, there you go. I wanted to emboss this piece because it just seemed a little plain with nothing on it. But I also wanted to stamp those words. And you might say, well, how do you stamp on top of embossing? Because it's bumpy, right? Well, I stamped before I embossed. The embossing folder that I chose is out of our catalog, and it's called Wintry. If you can see, but it's snowflakes. Okay? When you're going to stamp first and then emboss, two things to remember. One, pick a fairly large and bold font. And number two, pick an embossing folder that doesn't have a tight pattern. You can see here there's quite a bit of space around the bumpy parts, okay? And so that allowed for the Merry and Bright to still be seen. It's not all jumbled, it's not all bumpy. It worked out really nice. So think about those two things if you're going to stamp and then emboss on top. So that's my focal piece. Then I cut my two rectangles, and these are ink blended ones. This is an ink blended sample, okay? And when you look at that, you say, now wait a minute, what is this stuff? What is that going on there, that sparkly stuff? So I want to show you how to add even more dimension to your homemade paper. I'm going to bring in a smaller block, and I'm going to bring in two of our pens. One is, I'm going to use this one right now. This one is our Wink of Stella brush. It is a glitter brush, if you will. Inside the barrel, there is fluid, and it has glitter in it. So when you paint with this, it's going to be glittery. Now, we're not going to paint with it. We're going to do something else with it. I'm going to move my inks out of the way so I don't contaminate them. On my block, I'm going to squeeze out, can you see that? This is glittery liquid, okay? Then I'm going to pick some of that glittery liquid into the brush. Here's my piece. I'm going to use my hand as a little stand, if you will, and I'm going to flick, tap. Do you see it going on the paper, right? I'm actually adding a little bit of glimmer to the paper. You can do as much or as little as you want, okay? And there you have glitter paper, okay? So that's done with the Wink of Stella and the liquid that is in it. Okay, so now I would have my two pieces. This one isn't dry yet, so I want to be careful with it, but there are my two pieces, like that. And then I would add on my snowflake. Here's the shiny side. And there I would have, I just have to use my glue. There's my card. Now let me show you a done one. Okay, here is a finished one. Same exact thing that I just showed you, all glued down. The only thing that is lifted up is the snowflake. That is the ink blending technique. Now, let me show you the watercolor technique in a card. You can see it's very different looking. There's some watery parts here. I love it. You never know what's going to happen with the watercolor thing. And everything else exactly the same, except you're saying, wait a minute, that is not a white snowflake. What is going on? So let me show you a cool thing about the snowflakes. The snowflakes have a front and a back. Here is the shiny front. When you turn it over, the back is matte. There is no slick surface on there, which means you can color the snowflake. How would you color it? Well, you can use any of the Stampin' Blends, or you can use a dye-based marker. It doesn't matter. The tip to remember when you're going to color these, I'm going to use Starry Sky, Dark Starry Sky, and I'm going to use the brush tip. Our blends have two tips, a fine point and the brush. Always color these snowflakes with the side of your marker. The reason being, you don't want to ruin your tip by coloring with the tip down, and because these snowflakes are so intricately cut, if you put a tip in there, you run the risk of getting caught and ripping your snowflake. So I'm just going to gently use the side of my marker. Goes pretty fast because there's not a lot of surface area, honestly, on these. A lot of holes. But you see that I'm using the side, okay? And you can see where you miss some things. Again, you can use a dye-based marker if you want. You don't have to use an alcohol marker. Whatever works, whatever kind of marker you have, you can use. Really neat that you can, you know, if you like pink snowflakes, you can have pink snowflakes. This is really a great product to customize. Now, if you tried to color the other side, the shiny side, which I did, I tried to color it. Because it is slick, this ink will not, I mean, it'll dry a little bit, but it'll always come off because of the formulation of the alcohol and so forth. It will not stay on paper. What you would have to use is a stays-on, a permanent ink that will adhere to slick surfaces. Now let me hold this up. Now I can see I skipped a few little places. I'm not going to be real picky here today, but you get the point, right? So now I have custom colored my snowflake. Now I'm going to go a step further. Let me put my cap on. I'm going to go back to that wink of Stella, and now I'm going to use the side of that brush as well, and I'm going to make a glittery starry sky snowflake. So do you see how you can custom, I mean really custom, not only your own paper, but your own snowflakes. Okay, again, side of the brush. And there you have a glittery starry sky snowflake. And now this could go on a card as well. So today we talked about the word case and how it means copy and share everything. I hope you'll go out on Pinterest. I hope you'll use some of my ideas to make cards. And just remember, the crafters are really generous people. They're just so excited to have people crafting and using products that they really want you, and it's an honor really to be cased. If you don't have a demonstrator, I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Again, you can find me at darlenestamps.stampinup.net. That is my online store. All my contact information is there. I would love to hear from you. And if you'd like to place an order, I would just be honored by that. Also, I would really appreciate if you liked what you saw today, if you gave me a thumbs up, a like. It's always fun to go in and see that. Also, if you hit the subscribe tab and notification bell, you will know when I'm going to do another video. And if you have a crafty friend that you think would like this lesson, if you could hit share and send this to them, I would really appreciate that as well. As always, I like to leave you with a thought for the day. Today's words come from Henri Matisse. Don't wait for inspiration. It comes while working. Bye until next time.